Very warm welcome to Arise Special, an exclusive with His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Ahmad Nasir El-Rufai. Nice having you on Arise Special. 2022 is being seen as a kind of magical year. What are the prospects universally in Africa and particularly Nigeria when you look at 2022?
Well, globally, I think that 2022 is a year that the world hopes that this pandemic will finally end, or at least be reduced to something like the flu. Even with the Omicron variant ravaging the world, it is clear that the variant is not as deadly as earlier variants. And as a COVID survivor, I can tell you that the people I've seen with the Omicron variant are in a much better shape than what I experienced. So our hope is that the world will come together to end this pandemic through fairer distribution of vaccines and the new treatments that have been discovered by Merck and Pfizer. We hope that these treatments will be put on open patent so that developing countries can reproduce them and fight this pandemic. Climate change has become a big issue. We can see the effects. We can see how our weather is changing. We can see how agricultural production is being affected. We can see livelihoods along the coast being decimated because of climate change. And arising from the COP26, my hope is that the world will come together and put our brains and collective wisdom to develop technologies that will slow this down. We all have to do our bit. Africa still contributes very little to global warming. We may end up being victims of the fast-track effort to end the use of fossil fuels. And we must shout very loudly to the world that the energy transition in Africa has to take longer. We didn't bring the world to this position of rising temperatures. It is the industrialized world that caused this problem. And the industrialized world must indulge Africa and other developing countries to continue to use fossil fuels and the so-called dirty fuels like coal until we get to a level of development that we can afford not to use these sources of energy. So I think these are some of the major challenges facing the world, but the biggest problem is the fact that around the world there is ultra-nationalism everywhere. The sense of collaboration between nations to solve continental and global problems seems to have been degraded across the world. And our hope is that with the election of Joe Biden to the American presidency, there will be greater effort to bring the world together to address collective problems. In Africa, I think the prospects are bright. The African Continental Free Trade area is taking off. Nigeria is playing a key role, and Nigeria must play a key role. Africa contributes too little to world trade, a minuscule percentage, 3% or less than 5% last time I checked. And the key to increasing these trade figures is for Africans to trade between and amongst themselves. And the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to encourage that. And I'm very pleased that both Africa Development Bank and Afrexim Bank are taking the lead in trying to get African countries to collaborate and trade more together, share more aviation resources, for instance, and ensure that we take our destiny into our hands. No one will do it for us. We have to do it for ourselves. And Nigeria, being the largest economy in Africa and also the most populous country, we have a responsibility, we have a duty to black people everywhere to show that black people of a large country can run their country very well, can develop and can make black people proud. It is not South Africa that represents black people. It is Nigeria. Nigeria is the home to 1 out of every 5 black people in the world. And we must get our act together and show leadership in Africa. It is what we are able to do. If we are able to fix our problems, unite and develop and become a middle income to high income country, that black people around the world will walk with pride. And I think it's a responsibility God has invested in us, and we must, as Nigerians, look beyond our diversity and our differences to do this on behalf of Africa. And I think we will do it. And 2022 will be the year that will signal this momentum towards leading Africa. That is my hope, and I'm a perpetual optimist, and that's what I think.
I really can see that, and being a problem solver. I mean, whether you walk into Kaduna by road or you're flying by air, by whatever means you come to Kaduna, it's becoming one giant construction site. In fact, some people are beginning to call you Mr. Infrastructure. Tell us more about your urban renewal and the infrastructural development of Kaduna State.
Well, you know, Kaduna is maybe the second or the third planned city in Nigeria. There was nothing here. Lugard just came here and thought that locating a new capital for the Northern Protectorate on the banks of River Kaduna would be a good thing, and he drew the first town planning order that created this city. It has been successively the capital of the Northern Region, capital of North Central State, and now Kaduna State. This is where one of our founding fathers of Nigeria, Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sadon of Sokoto, lived and was premier of the Northern Region. And once upon a time, everyone wanted to live in Kaduna. Whether you're a northerner or a southerner, Kaduna was home. Kaduna was quite cosmopolitan. It was inclusive. It accepted everyone. People of various tribes and religions lived side by side. Even during the Civil War, it was Kaduna or North Central State that initiated the process of taking over houses abandoned by people from the southeast during the crisis and collect rents and put in the bank and return the money to them at the end of the war. It started here in Kaduna by one of our older permanent secretaries, a gentleman called Abbas Dabo Sambo. He's still alive. It was his idea, and that idea was circulated around the northern states, and that's what happened. And it's only in this part of the country that happened. So this was the spirit of Kaduna. Kaduna was everybody's home. Kaduna was no man's land and everybody's land. Very much like Abuja of today. And it was the capital territory. It had no traditional ruler. It was a modern city. And by the time states were created, we had inherited some of the basic infrastructure laid down by Sir Ahmadu Bello of blessed memory. And what successive governors did, in my view, and I've lived in Kaduna since 1968, though I left around 1998, and I did not return until I contested for the governorship. But what most governors did was to do very little, because everything was in place. Everything that a new state needed, you know, a hotel, a stadium.
They didn't think of expansion, the kind of expansion you're beginning to think of now.
It was not being expanded. The population grew. Today, we are talking of 3 to 4 million people living in Kaduna metropolis with the infrastructure of 650,000 people. The water supply system is for 650,000. So our number one priority when we came in is how do we bridge the infrastructure deficit? And we planned it. We did an infrastructure master plan to the year 2050. We revised the Kaduna master plan, which was done by Max Locke in 1968. And we marshaled all our resources, restructured our government, cut down expenses on consumption, and tried to divert a lot of our resources into capital projects in education, in healthcare, and infrastructure. This takes 80%, 70, 80% of our budget since we came into office. And this is the result of what you're seeing. And it's not just Kaduna that suffered this fate. Zaria also is a major metropolitan center, 2 to 3 million people. Kafanchan is a major historical town, a railway junction where the eastern line and the western line meet to come to Kaduna, which is the junction. And all these three cities, cities with population of 1 million and above, and the infrastructure had not been expanded for 2 to 3 decades. And we felt that one of our priorities, in addition to developing the foundations for human capital, education and healthcare, is to meet up the infrastructure deficit. That's what we've been doing. We have spent, I don't know, in the last 6 years, close to 120 billion on roads, water supply, and other infrastructure. And if you go around Kaduna, you will see the very clear difference. We have also gone ahead to create mayoralties, metropolitan authorities, to manage this city. Because many cities in Nigeria are not managed because they are divided into several local governments with no one in charge. Drainage lines, water lines do not recognize local government boundaries. You need someone, a central authority, to manage a city. A city is like a human being. It's an organic thing that has to be looked at and managed centrally. This is why Abuja has a minister. I was privileged to do that job about 2 decades ago, and I learned a lot. And this is part of the reason why in Kaduna we created 3 metropolitan authorities. One to manage Kaduna Capital Territory, another to manage Kafanchan Municipal Authority, and another to manage Zaria. And the administrators of these metropolitan authorities are commissioners of cabinet rank, very much like the way the FCT minister is a minister of cabinet rank. So that's what we are trying to do, and we hope that it's an experiment that will endure and will work, and will show other cities in Nigeria how they can be managed better.
But is it coming too late? You know, just about 2 years to the end of your tenure.
Well, yes. People might think that, but it required a lot of thinking and planning and working through the legislature and trying to ensure that there are no contradictions between the constitutional powers of local governments versus constitutional powers of the states. We had to strike a balance and ensure that we do not pass legislation that is unconstitutional. So it took time and a lot of discussion and advocacy, but I think we are there. We will start. I think within the 1.5 years we have left, we will show the results so clearly that a future government will continue with this experiment. But if a future government doesn't think it's a good idea, that's up to them. I did many things in Abuja, many of which were reversed. I don't lose any sleep over it. The results are there for everyone to see.
In fact, the people of Abuja, they keep missing you and they say, oh, you finished your work in Kaduna State. Let the president, Muhammadu Buhari, bring you back to come and refix the Federal Capital Territory. What are your thoughts along that line?
Well, I think you should tell them that throughout the years I was in school, I had never repeated a class. It is not like an election that I get re-elected. This is an appointment, and I think there are enough Nigerians that are younger, more energetic to do that job than me. I'm getting a little rusty. I'm old. I'm an old man now.
Okay, but growing with great wisdom. Now, let's look at the infrastructural development, the 3 metropolitan city, and only recently you hosted CADFest 6.0. Is the state beginning to get the benefits of those developmental projects and the CADFest, you would say? Are the investors coming in now?
Yes, investors are coming. When we came into office, the 2014 World Bank Ease of Doing Business subnational rankings ranked Kaduna number 24 out of 36 in the ease of doing business. Because of the reforms that we've introduced and investments in infrastructure and governance, we moved to number 1 4 years later by 2018. And the results are clear. In the last 6 years, since we started with our first edition of Card Invest in 2016, we have attracted $2.8 billion in investments. And the investments are real, from the largest hatchery and feed mill in sub-Saharan Africa by Singapore's Olam, to tractor assembly plants, to a new Pujo assembly plant in collaboration with Dangote Pujo, which will be the largest vehicle assembly plant in Nigeria, to a fertilizer plant by OCP of Morocco, and so on and so forth. We also attracting a lot of agro-allied industries. We are the largest producer of maize, ginger, soya beans, and tomatoes. And in Kaduna, we have 2 tomato processing plants, GB Foods and Tomato Juice, that between them produce 20% of Nigeria's tomato paste output. We also have the best ginger in the world, according to a former Japanese ambassador. We produce 85% of Nigeria's ginger, 25% of Nigeria's maize, and flour mills is here in a big way. They have just expanded their processing facilities here. So we've attracted a lot of agro investments. We've attracted fast-moving consumer goods. ShopRite is opening its first mall here in Kaduna, with plans to open more. So our Card Invest has been quite successful. And even at the height of COVID-19, we had Card Invest virtually. And the investments keep coming. People are surprised that why are investors coming to Kaduna in spite of the headlines about insecurity and so on and so forth.
I definitely will come to that.
Because the investors are discerning. Our major problem is security. We are working with the federal authorities to put an end to that. And by the time that is done, with what we've invested and our ramp up in internally generated revenue, I think Kaduna State is the state of the future. It is the next Lagos.
State of the future, the next Lagos. And the spate of insecurity, you seem to have, downplayed it with the economic, growth that you've recorded in the last 6 years and the rest. But the hopelessness and helplessness of the people, because they virtually are attacking the metropolis and the rest. And they wonder, where are the security forces? Where is the government?
Well, let me correct you. They are not attacking the metropolis. These bandits, operate in the periphery because their hiding place is the forest. So they can't come into the metropolis as such. So that has not happened frequently. It is a major problem. The security agencies are doing their best, but they are overstretched. The Nigerian armed forces are involved in internal security operations in about 32, 33 states, and we have, 150,000 of them. Our police has not recruited in many years. When we came into office, we had 13,000 policemen in Kaduna. Today, we have 11,000. Yesterday, I was talking to the IG about this, and he assured me that they are recruiting 10,000 policemen. Okay, 10,000 policemen across 36 states. How many more can I get? So the reality is we don't have enough boots on the ground to address the myriad of security challenges that we face. And these security challenges are asymmetric. They are widespread. They are everywhere. There is no part of Nigeria that does not face one security problem or the other. And it requires a holistic solution, ramping up of number of boots, more technology, more investments in armament, and a level of ruthlessness to, wipe these guys once and for all.
What you suggested?
I have always believed that, we should carpet bomb the forests. We can replant the trees after, but let's carpet bomb the forests, kill all of them. There will be collateral damage, but, it's better to wipe them out and bring peace back to our communities so that agriculture and rural economies can pick up than to continue these touch and go, isolated responses to banditry. They kill people in Sokoto, you mobilize the army there and chase them out, but they move to Kebbi. And then from Kebbi, if they are bombed, they move to Kaduna. What should be done is to bomb them from the air, ground troops on the ground, at the same time in all 5-6 states of the Northwest plus Niger. And this problem can be sorted out, in my view, in weeks. But, you know, I am just a public policy person. I've never been in the security business, so maybe there is something that I don't know. But I believe that the levels of insecurity now are at a tipping point, and something's got to give. My hope is that what will give is the end of this banditry once and for all. It is a problem.
It is indeed a problem. Just like one of the problems you inherited, or, you know, has been on from time immemorial, the herders-farmers conflict and the rest. And I know your government is intervening. To what form and extent are you trying to solve that aspect of insecurity too?
Look, the farmer-herders conflict is not a major source of insecurity, okay? It has always been there, and there are structures to deal with that. The traditional institutions, the security agencies know how to deal with that. The problem is some people confuse this banditry with farmer-herders clash. These bandits are criminals, okay? They sell cows, buy guns, and made a conscious decision to be criminals. It's not farmer-herders clash. Farmer-herders clash occurs when herdsmen that do not carry AK-47 but carry their sticks and their cows, you know, encroach on a farm or destroy crops. And what usually happens is that the person that destroys the crops will report himself and say, look, I have damaged crops. That will be assessed, and he will pay. He can either give one of his cows or sell and pay. That is done every day, every time. It is a problem, but it is not a major problem, okay? Why do we have the encroachments? Because once upon a time, Nigeria had grazing reserves. Nigeria had dedicated routes, cattle routes and stock routes. But over time, because of population, because of urban development, because of encroachment, and in some cases greed by senior government officials, some of these grazing reserves and cattle routes have been allocated to individuals. And these cattle go through these farms, and you have this problem, okay? Now, there are two ways to solve this problem. Either you recover all the stock routes and the grazing reserves. It can be done. I mean, the state government can revoke titles to the land to those allocated, and some states have done it, like Jigawa. They have recovered all their grazing routes and cattle routes. But there are some that you cannot do anything about.
Is that a solution? I mean, in modern times?
No. I'm just telling you,
okay,
there are two solutions. That's one. And some states have opted to do that. But we in Kaduna cannot do that. Neither can Abuja, because Abuja is an international cattle route, by the way. Right by the villa that is supposed to be an international cattle route. So what are you going to do? Are you going to recover that? So that's not a practical solution. In the 21st century, the Northern State Governors Forum met, debated this, and told the likes of Jigawa, even though you've done this in your state, that is not the solution. The solution is to look at livestock production and take steps to modernize it. How do you modernize it? By sedentarizing the itinerant herdsmen, give them infrastructure to stay in one place, give them pasture, give them water. They don't have to be moving up and down to produce livestock. They can do so in one place. Some may call it ranching, some may call it whatever it is. That's the way to go. And we've all agreed we'll do that. But that is a very expensive process. It will take time, and it requires a lot of advocacy. And the herdsmen and women have to be convinced that this modern method of livestock production is better, more viable, and more profitable than the
nomadic,
nomadic system. That's what we are doing. In Kaduna State, we borrowed 10 billion naira from the Central Bank of Nigeria. We took one of our grazing reserves in Damao, we are converted into a ranch. We partnered with Arla of Denmark, which is one of the largest dairy companies in the world. They will be investing 50 million euros. We are putting in 10 billion naira. And together, we are building 1,500 houses, schools, vet clinics, meat processing facilities, milk collection centers, to resettle 1,500 families of herdsmen. And we hope that the success of that will show the herdsmen that you can make a living in one place. Your child gets to go to school, you have a vet clinic, you get health care, and you don't get into trouble going into anybody's farm and having to pay compensation. And then we hope to replicate that. But that cost us 10 billion naira. And we had to borrow it because we don't have the resources. Now, we've asked the federal government to support the states by giving each state an amount in this degree so that we all establish this and show that this thing can be done. This is the 21st century. It doesn't make sense to be going up and down with cattle. The meat becomes too hard. The milk production is too low. We are bringing in breeds of cattle that will produce 24 to 30 liters of milk per day. The average Sokoto breed, the cattle that we have, that the herdsmen use, produce 1 to 2 liters per day. So you can imagine if you can multiply the income of these families 10 times. It will be a significant change. It's a game changer, and that's what the Northern State Governors Forum have decided. We've decided we will all do this. Some of us have started, some have not. Zamfara has started, Kaduna has started. I think Niger has started. And our hope is that over time, the herdsmen will see that there is no sense in being itinerant and nomadic. You can stay in one place, you can sedentarize like my great-grandfather did. I am Fulani. My great-grandfather settled in Zaria, and today, because I've gone to school, I've got an education, I'm in politics, I'm the governor of Kaduna State, not a bandit. So everyone has the opportunity to get there, but it requires advocacy, it requires a real-life example, and it requires resources. This is what the Northern State Governors Forum has decided to do, but we need support.
Yes, support. And let's ask that. Is insecurity an economic problem?
Of course it is. Insecurity reduces investments. If we did not have some of the security challenges we had, I would not be talking about $2.8 billion in investment. I would be talking about maybe multiples of that. I will give another example. We have a ginger processing plant in Kachia, in southern Kaduna. It's state-owned. We put it out for sale, and Olam showed interest to purchase it because we produce a lot of ginger in that part of the state. And but a senator from Kaduna State now made a statement that nobody is safe in southern Kaduna. When they read that, they freaked out and pulled out of the investment. And I've been trying to get them back on the table for 5 years. And they did it. So insecurity is not just a human issue. It is also an economic issue. It affects livelihoods. There is nothing you can do with certain levels of insecurity. Today, we have rising food prices. Many people think it's because of the dollar. No, it is because agricultural production has been negatively affected by this banditry that discourages people from going to their farms. Those that have been able to farm cannot go and harvest their crops. Some of the bandits in some parts of the north are imposing levies and taxes on communities before they can go to their farms. And this has an effect because this part of the country is one of the food baskets of the country. So inevitably it will affect. It's a major issue. It's a major economic issue. And increasingly it is also becoming a political issue. So it's something that I think, as I said, is at a tipping point and something's got to give.
Something's really got to give, and I want us to look at Nigeria's political terrain. It's been overheating in the last couple of weeks, particularly with Mr. President's rejection of, assenting to a section, because of a section of the electoral law, the direct primaries. It is seen as a direct confrontation between state chief executives, governors like you, and the legislators. What are your thoughts here? Is a direct primary not the best solution to imposition, to, the overbearing chief executives, as some say?
Well, look, let me give you my personal opinion, okay? And then I'll try to debunk some simplistic assumptions by certain people about these direct primaries and indirect primaries. Okay? First, I want to say, for everyone to hear loud and clear, President Buhari has always been an advocate of direct primaries. From our days in the CPC through to the last primaries in 2018, when he ran for the second time, we used direct primaries. So ideologically and personally, President Buhari prefers direct primaries to indirect primaries because he believes that direct primaries is one that gives party members greater participation in deciding who is their candidate, rather than a few elected people and delegates that can be susceptible to corruption. Okay, so this is his view. These are views he held since I started working with him politically in 2011. Okay. So I want people to understand that by refusing to sign that bill, it is not President Buhari doing it because of a certain preference for indirect primaries or anything. If anything, I told my colleagues that President Buhari is likely to sign that bill because I know what he feels about direct primaries. Okay? So I want that clear, because those that are trying to say President Buhari did this or did not do that because of this or that should understand that he is an ardent advocate of direct primaries from long way back. Okay? Oh, good. Now, but what do we have here? What we have is a piece of legislation that mandates only one method of getting candidates to emerge in the party. It is not a bad method. Okay? If you can have 4 conditions precedent in place, direct primaries is the best form of primaries. The 4 conditions are: 1, you must have a membership register that is open, that everyone agrees is the real membership register of the party. Okay? That's the first. Secondly, you need every member that is in that register to have a biometric card with barcode so that he can be easily identified before he can vote in the primaries. Okay? So we need to produce cards very similar to INEC voters card, or the same quality. Thirdly, you must have a system or a mechanism for counting the votes in the direct primaries that everyone has confidence in. Okay? And fourthly, you need security to prevent non-members from coming into the venue to vote or thugs being imported to disrupt the voting. Okay? If you don't have these 4 conditions, direct primaries will be a disaster.
Why not digitalize the register?
I'm speaking from experience because we tried to do direct primaries here in Kaduna for our local government elections. And we had serious problems because these 4 things were not fully in place. Okay? Now, can we put all this in place for the next elections? Maybe we can. Okay? I don't know, but right now, we don't have that in place. And I want to remind Nigerians to look at results of primaries of direct primaries, okay, in the last few years. We have examples. A recent example is Anambra State, where our candidate, Andy Uba, allegedly got hundreds of thousands of votes in the direct primaries of party members. These are party members that voted for him. That's what the direct primary results show. And then the general election came and he got a fraction of what he got in the direct primaries. How can that be? You can at least be sure that members of your party will all come out and vote for you, and maybe a few from that are neutral that will add to that. So this happened because these four things that I told you were not in place in Anambra State, and what you saw at the results of the direct primaries may not represent the reality. Okay? Go back to 2019 in Lagos. There are direct primaries that produced Sanwo-Olu and defeated Ambode. Yes? Go and check the numbers of votes that the winner of the election got and compare with what he got in the election. You will know that the direct primaries results are not reflective of reality. So direct primaries are actually more susceptible to abuse, okay, than indirect primaries, because direct primaries must take place in every ward at the same time, on the same day. It's more difficult to manage the indirect primaries, where a limited number of people in one room can be counted. You cannot change that. You cannot do anything. So I want people to bear that in mind. Now, here in Kaduna State, we are in a position to do direct primaries. If between now and the time for the primaries, we're able to computerize our register, issue membership cards with barcodes to every member of the party, and tie the membership card, the biometric membership card, to our voting machine. We have electronic voting machines. We can use them for the direct primaries. We have thousands of them. Okay?
So digitalization
we
is
have
the way to go.
8,000 of them. We have 255 wards. We can deploy 50 per ward. We have enough. Okay? So we can do it. Okay? And these electronic voting machines have been tried and tested through 2 elections. And everyone agrees that, they result in free and fair elections. So we can do that. But we have the infrastructure. But how many states in Nigeria has that infrastructure? Only one, Kaduna. Okay? So I want Nigerians to be very discerning and think through this direct primaries, indirect primaries controversy, and understand the reason why the president said, let the parties decide. Because the level of preparedness of the parties for these direct primaries is probably questionable. Okay? As I said, in my view, today, perhaps only Kaduna has one element of the 4 conditions precedent that I have pointed out, the voting machine, that everyone agrees, does this, that can even look at that. The reason why some politicians, okay, are saying direct primaries, is because they think they can do what happened in Lagos, Anambra, and so on, and write the results. It's not because they think that direct primaries is quite possible, okay? So we need to be very discerning and careful and understand the processes of direct primaries and the conditions precedent as against indirect primaries, and not make a moral judgment without understanding the dynamics of this. Here in Kaduna State, we are value neutral. We can do direct, we can do indirect. I don't have problems in our party. We have a united party, and we have some elements that would enable us to do direct primaries, but I'm not sure others have it. And this is part of the reason why President Buhari, I think, erred on the side of caution to say, allow the parties, have some flexibility, allow the parties to choose. But I know that in his heart of hearts, President Buhari would prefer to see direct primaries. But he is not going to be contesting. He has no interest in the next election. And he is in a position to be objective about these things, and that's what he did. And I think Nigerians should commend him for going against what he would prefer in the interest of the country.
Okay, let's go back to the issue of banditry, insecurity, and the rest. How political can they be, and how do we, navigate this terrain? Because it seems to be slowing us down, socio-politically and economically.
It is. Now, the reason why I said that it's increasingly becoming a political issue is because I recall one of the candidates for the 2019 elections said that if Buhari is re-elected, banditry will get worse. Is that a prophecy, or does the person know what he's talking about? Is this rise in banditry fueled by political considerations? The president promised to address insecurity, diversify the economy, and fight corruption. These were the three platforms he ran on. As a former general and former commander-in-chief of the armed forces, everyone knows Buhari and his antecedents and how he invaded Chad when Chadian gendarmes, entered Borno State. Are some politicians fueling this to discredit the president? Is this about 2023? Is it to say that APC failed to provide security so that will be the campaign issue in 2023? I don't know. But there are many of us that look at some of the utterances and the statements of political leaders around that time that we didn't take quite seriously, that now we reflect on. And this is why I think that this banditry is at a tipping point, and it has to be crushed. Okay? We are going to see the end of it this year, because we are not going to go into elections with this level of insecurity. There are parts of my state where elections could not take place. Local government elections couldn't take place in Birnungwari because of insecurity. One local government, it was impossible. In another local government, we had to postpone the elections so that we deploy the bulk of our security forces on that day to one or two local governments. That's how we're able to conduct the elections in Zangon Kataf local government. So this problem must be addressed for even the elections to take place.
Okay, for the elections to take place, your party, the All Progressives Congress, President Buhari some 2 years ago expressed certain consternation about the infighting in the All Progressives Congress. In 7 years, you've had 4 chairmen, the caretaker chairman, Oshomole, Oyegun, and now we have your colleague, In 7 years, what are your fears for APC with the convention scheduled for February?
Have you counted how many chairmen PDP has had in 7 years? Okay, let me answer your question. We are scheduled to have our convention in February, and all these issues will be sorted out. Look, political parties are organic institutions, and every political party has tendencies and factions, and part of the beauty of politics is that this engagement is continuous ad infinitum. Alliances are formed, alliances change, and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean crisis. Okay, I still remember some of the writings of James Madison in Federalist Papers. He was against political parties because he thought political parties would be sources of division. Okay, because he said parties must have factions and godfathers and so on and so forth. So he didn't want political parties. But at the end of the day, today in the US, after over 200 years of experimentation, they have political parties. Are the parties divisive? Yeah, they are. But what is the option? APC, like any political party, was an amalgam of the good, the bad, and the ugly, just like any political party. There are people that do not share the vision or the outlook of President Muhammad Buhari. There are some that are in this for what they can get. There are some that are in this for public service. And it is the duty of every political party to manage these tendencies and suppress the base instincts and elevate the better instincts, and we are going to do that. The president was unhappy because we went into elections under Adams Oshomole. We lost 7 states that we could have won because of all kinds of problems in the management of the party. The caretaker committee is trying to sort out these problems, unite the party. They have made some progress. They have got some governors to come to our party. They have been engaged in intensive reconciliation. Abdullah Adamu's committee is working on further reconciliation now after the congresses. We have 36 states, all right? After the congresses, we have intra-party crisis in maybe 4 or 5 states. That is not significant. You know, there are problems in Kano, there are problems in Kebbi, I'm told.
In Yobe?
There are problems in Yobe. I have not heard of problems in Yobe.
Or is it Zamfara?
There are problems in Zamfara. But really, apart from that, that's it.
Okay.
So I think we will sort out our problems. We will elect our National Executive Committee in February by the grace of God. And then after that, some reconciliation will still be needed because politicians don't lose well. When they lose, they sulk. So you have to go and get them and talk to them and hug them and so on. But we will be through it. We will be through it and we'll be ready. And if you think we have crisis, look at the other party and count how many chairmen they have had in 7 years. You will see that APC is in good shape, comparatively.
Okay, APC is in good shape. But let's look at another political issue, you know, that seems to be topsy-turvy here. Is the issue of zoning, particularly the presidency. How well does that or will that work for Nigeria? Are you an advocate of zoning the presidency or an advocate of let the best person from whatever, you know, Hampstead is coming from?
Look, there are 2 sides to this, okay? If you ask me for my personal opinion, I ask you to look at the people I work with. I don't zone positions. I get people that can get the job done. And I'm a student of history, I'm a student of governance. I have not seen any country in the world that has succeeded on a sustainable basis by selecting its leaders based on geography, religion, ethnicity, and so on. So it is not a smart way to choose leaders. The smartest way to choose leaders in all the countries that have made progress before my lifetime and in my lifetime is to have a competitive basis in which merit trumps everything. You pick the best material. You put forward your first 11 in a football match. You don't allow that to be based on the chance of, you know, I mean, the Nigerian football team does not have 1, 2 representatives from each geopolitical zone, for Christ's sake. Okay? So why do we choose leaders of a country and a government on that basis? But that's my personal opinion, and I have practiced it. Okay? If you come to Kaduna State, you'll find that our government has people from every part of Nigeria. I think the last time we checked, we have people from 18 states of Nigeria represented. Why? Because we just want results. We don't care where you come from. If you're from the moon and you can add value to 10 million people that live in Kaduna, I will work with you. The people of Kaduna may accuse me of giving jobs to non-indigens, but I will explain. I will defend it. And when they see the results, they will keep quiet. They are seeing the results now. Everybody is quiet. Nobody complains about non-indigens working in the Kaduna State government anymore. In 2015, 2016, that was the complaint. Nobody talks about it anymore because the results are clear. We are getting things done. We are creating jobs. We are building infrastructure. We are improving schools. We are getting best quality teachers from all across Nigeria to improve the levels of our education. Who cares who teaches your son or daughter as long as they get good education? Okay? So this is my personal opinion, and this is what I've practiced in my public service. However, in this country, there is a political culture that presupposes that the leadership of the country or leadership even of states should rotate between various parts of the country. There is an understanding. In fact, one party have it in their constitution. The PDP has it in its own constitution. We don't have it in the APC. We don't have zoning in our constitution. But there is an unspoken understanding, okay? And in politics, these kind of understandings are as strong as any provision of the Constitution. They are conventions. You observe them. And if you don't observe them, you pay a heavy political price. Goodluck Jonathan paid that price when he tried to violate the agreement with the PDP leaders that he will only contest one term after Yar'Adua's term. Okay? So, if we have this understanding, I have said this before, that it is my opinion that based on the political culture of Nigeria, not because I think it's a good idea, not because I support it personally, not because I practice it, no. Based on the political culture in Nigeria, after 8 years of President Buhari, the presidency should be open to the South, okay? I do not think that any northerner should put himself forward and say, I want the presidency.
So you won't contest in 2023?
No.
For the presidency?
I'm not a contestant.
Why have you ruled yourself out? Because of the expediency you just explained?
No. I'm not ruling myself out because of that. Okay? I'm saying there is an understanding, and unless I'm a member of APC, okay? Unless circumstances compel the APC of the South to come to us in the North and say, look, we don't want it. You take it. Then I can say that, okay, it's now open for Northerners. All right? But until then, I think there is a moral problem in trying to ignore what is clearly an understanding. And this kind of agreements are the currency of politics, okay? So it is not about ruling myself out or whatever. I have never offered myself for that office, even though I've been suspected of that since 2007. But, you know,
that's your partnership with the Ekiti State Governor, Kaude Fayemi. Some people are looking at the 2023 tickets between you and him.
There is nothing like that. It's a myth. There are many myths around that. I want to assure you that it's nothing. Look, for me, Nigeria is at a critical juncture, okay? And we have many problems. And I think Nigerians should look very closely and choose leaders that will address those problems, no matter where they come from.
Absolutely. The social-political divide, I think I'll make it maybe the final note. You had the opportunity when you headed a committee on something like, you know, the Sovereign National Conference, the agitations here and there from the True Federalism Committee.
Yeah.
And your party, you know, threw that opportunity away. If not, why the agitations by IPOB, the Yoruba Nation by Sunday Igboho, and others?
To be quite fair, those agitations have been there even before my committee. They just got louder, okay? Our committee did its work, and we presented it to the party. We presented it to the president, who supported it strongly, but somehow the National Assembly is still working on it. I haven't lost hope. Many of our recommendations have been adopted by the Joint Ad Hoc Committee on amending the Constitution, and you will see many of the things that we recommended, like state police and so on and so forth, will be presented by the Ad Hoc Committee as recommendations for Nigeria's Constitution to be amended to be more federal. So I have not lost hope. Could it have done much earlier? Yes, I believe so. But if you ask me the question, I would say, why don't you ask the party? I am not the party. I'm just one governor out of 36 that wakes up every morning trying to solve the problems of Kaduna State and hope that the people of Kaduna will appreciate what I'm doing. I am in no position to speak for the party or for Nigeria. I'm just one governor out of 36.
But you cut across to me like an incurable optimist about the unity of Nigeria.
I am.
Do you believe in regionalism? Do you believe that, power should be devolved so that development, socio-political and economic development can be faster?
Look, I believe that our federation needs to be rebalanced. I believe that there are many functions that the federal government undertakes that they don't do well. They are overstretched and will be done better by the states. I believe that there are many functions done by the federal government and the state that can be done better by local governments and should be devolved accordingly, all right? But I don't believe in regionalism. The regions of the old are gone. They are a myth. They will not come back. I believe that the current structure we have of 36 states and the FCT and the local governments can be made to work if there is the will. Yes, we can tweak the constitution here and there to devolve more responsibilities to the states that the federal government is currently handling. I believe that if the federal government's scope is narrowed, it will be able to be smaller, more efficient, and more effective.
Your Excellency, what are your wishes for the people of Nigeria in 2022?
Well, I wish them a very happy 2022. I hope that 2022 will be much better. We will not be anything like 2020 and 2021. I mean, the world and Nigerians have seen a lot. We've lost a lot of good people, good leaders. We've seen our economy shrink. We've seen livelihoods destroyed. And insecurity rising. My hope and prayer is that 2022 will be a year of change for the better. It doesn't help anyone. And we have a duty as elite, whether we are in politics or the business community or the media, to put Nigeria's interest above everything else.
Yes, Nigeria's interest above everything else. Thanks so very much. His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, for speaking to us on Arise Special. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.